people doing great things in preparedness, recovery and community resilience. Prepared for Disaster. It's all about building stronger, prepared local communities, ready to face more frequent disasters. Hello, wonderful listeners, and welcome to the Prepared for Disaster program, a new program about communities and disasters. I am your host, Jodie Stewart. I'm the Disaster Preparedness Coordinator for the Eden Community Access Centre. I'll be joining you fortnightly along with some very special guests as we undertake a series of conversations about disasters and the roles that communities do and can play in response to increasing disaster events. This show is produced and broadcast on the lands of the Thawa people of the Yuin Nation. I would like to pay my respects to Elders past and present and to all First Nations people joining us today. I would also like to acknowledge First Nations sovereignty of the lands, air and waters, and that this sovereignty was never ceded. This is, was and always will be First Nations land. Now, just a little trigger warning before we get started. In this show, we will be discussing disasters and their impact. Some content may be distressing. Please look after yourself while listening, or if you think this is not for you, you can come back to us. You can come back to the broadcast in an hour. Okay, so the Prepared for Disaster program is part of the Disaster Preparedness Project. The Disaster Preparedness Project is an Eden Community Access Centre initiative. The project is funded through the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority, which was the former Resilience New South Wales, and is a 2-year funded initiative. Now, the aim of the project is to bring community together to develop a plan that can provide practical tools and strategies for us to be better prepared for future disasters, whether that be floods, pandemics or fires. Now, over the course of the project, we've been chatting with many people in the community. Now, during these conversations and chats, many shared with us the need to be well informed and to have accurate, up-to-date information that could help them to make the right decisions when preparing their homes and communities for future disaster events. Many also said that they would like to know more about the role of combat agencies and other authorities like local councils, and that they were interested in hearing insights from other community members about how they prepared for, navigated and recovered from disaster events. Now, the Prepared for Disaster program is a response to these conversations. So hello and welcome to our very first show. We are all a little bit nervous here today, so I hope you will bear with us, but we are channeling all that wonderful nervous energy and we hope to provide a really enjoyable program for you. Now, I'd like to start by introducing my co-hosts for this episode. In the studio here with me this morning, Sharon Wellard and Deb Austin. Now, Sharon and Deb are both valued members of the Disaster Preparedness team. Sharon and Deb are here today to talk with us about the Disaster Preparedness Project and the work that they have been doing to date. Hello, Sharon. How are you?
Hello, Jodie and listeners. It's very exciting to have our first program go live to air.
So Sharon, part of what we're doing today on our very first program is introducing the team. So tell us the Sharon Wellard story. Who are you and what makes you tick?
Well, the Sharon Wellard story is that I was born in inner city Melbourne and at the age of 8 moved with my family to Pambula in the early 1970s. And that was because my father, even then, way back then, hated how big and busy Melbourne was becoming. So he wanted to escape what he called the rat race. So I went to Pambula Primary School and St Joseph's in Eden and then Eden High, and I had a wonderful free childhood roaming Pambula Beach, and I count myself very lucky to have had an amazing Australian upbringing. After high school I worked locally for a couple of years and then went off to study journalism in Brisbane. I was away from the area raising a family and working in many different organisations, mainly in Sydney, for a number of years. And then 4 years ago, I returned to the area. I have two sons aged 25 and 27. So I've always loved the far south coast. It's always felt like home, but I must say I see it through fresh eyes now that I'm almost 60 years old. And when you're a child, you take so much for granted. I didn't have a lot of gratitude for the beauty all around me then. I took it for granted. Now I really do value the natural areas, the ocean, the waterways. This is a really special place. And the people are real, down-to-earth, kind and strong. Eden has a proud and rich history of triumph over adversity and of pulling together through hard times. So this place is really hard to beat. Just a bit on my professional background, which has been in communication. I've helped large organisations communicate well with their staff and also with the people who purchase their goods and services. When I arrived back here, I began working for Bega Valley Shire Council in the communication team, just before the fires actually. And I had the great privilege of working at council for 3 years until recently. And during and immediately after the fires, I worked with Ian Campbell, who many people will remember as being the voice of council during the fires, and I learned a lot about emergency communication from him. I've also learned a lot about disaster recovery and about how government works and the challenges faced by government and communities during and after disaster. So I've been working with Jody and Deb on the Disaster Preparedness Project for more than 12 months now, along with some other projects that are being championed by the Eden Community Access Centre, and they include the future of Nullika Lodge and Clean Corallo. I'm also on the Board of Management at the Access Centre, and I'm really finding that very fulfilling. I'm inspired to make a contribution to the community with my skills and interests. I'm actually reading a book right now about the philosophy of what is called long-termism. The book's called What We Owe the Future by William MacAskill, and basically the book proposes that just as people around us today matter, so too do future people, the next generations and generations many, many years in the future. We can have a positive impact now and for the future by our actions today. So it's a great read, I highly recommend it. And I guess I see what we're doing as part of the Disaster Preparedness Project is investing in people alive today as well as in future generations. Those people in the future matter as well. So I'm enjoying getting back into reading. That's another thing I've been focusing on, and it's great because I've spent many years feeling like I don't have enough time and I'm too busy. Jodie's actually given me some great books to read over the last 12 months, and I managed to read 53 books in 2022, which I'm pretty pleased about. So I'm going for the record this year. Maybe I'll do 54. I love listening to music, and I enjoyed choosing the songs for our program today. I went for positive songs about the future, people connecting with one another, being joyful and being strong together. So that's the Sharon Wellard story. So before we introduce Deb, here's a word from our sponsors.
Welcome back. We just heard from Sharon Wellard, who shared her fabulous life journey with us. We definitely do share a love of books and community, and I've been really, really privileged to work with Sharon over the last 12 months, and I've learnt an incredible amount from her. Now, another person that I have learnt a lot from and continue to learn from is my very, very fabulous support officer, Deb Austin. Deb, share with us your story. What is the Deb Austin story?
Thanks, Jodie. And hello, everyone. Well, my story begins in the industrial heartland of Gippsland, Victoria, where coal abounds and everything's coated in it. My father, in his early years, was always in search of the next adventure, so we moved around a lot until he settled back in the Latrobe Valley in Traralgon. When I left home, I had that same appetite to not be in the one place for too long, but being very connected to my family, I didn't feel I could move away. So I just moved houses, changed jobs, changed towns, all to gain life experience, although limited. Mostly I stayed in Latrobe Valley, except for a couple of years spent up here in New South Wales, where I was at Wannabadgery, Illabo, which is out near Junee, and then I bought my first home in Cootamundra. After my grandmother passed, I was asked to help my dad on his hobby farm out near Cairn River, just down the road a bit. So I packed up and moved again. I was there for about 8 years and thoroughly enjoyed living off-grid and being pretty much self-sufficient. The lifestyle is priceless, but it's the beautiful mountains, forests and wildlife that joined me for breakfast that I fell in love with. I felt more relaxed than I had in a very long time. It was a very peaceful existence. My working life has seen me doing a variety of jobs, from taxi driving, cleaning, checkout chick, to newspaper advertising, administration, and even running my own businesses. Work at my new home in Cairn River was my first step into community work at the local community centre, and I discovered how much I loved working in that sector. I found it extremely rewarding to be able to help people. It's not like work at all, really. It's certainly not a chore. Eden has been a favourite holiday destination of mine for decades, and when I moved to Cairn River, it became my regular shopping town. I love its small town vibe, no busy hubbub, except in peak season, which we've all just gone through. The mountains here are beautiful, similarly to the Cairn Valley, and the sea, well, it's just breathtaking. After the fires went around Cairn River late 2019 and took my humble dwelling, I found myself homeless for about 6 months with just a caravan plonked in the middle of Cairn River at the tow truck yard. Then I took off to sunny Queensland to recover. But it got way too hot and the lure of the bush called. So my partner and I found a quaint little cabin out near Boyd Town and we came back. It feels good to make a new home here in Eden. Everything's lovely. Everyone is lovely, friendly, helpful, kind and understanding, because we've all been through a very harrowing ordeal. When a role came up at the Eden Community Access Centre, working with the rural support workers initially, who were helping bushfire affected folks, I jumped at the opportunity. It's been so great to what I call repay the help I received after the fires. To be part of a team that has made a difference in so many people's situations has filled me with joy and pride that a handful of individuals got to make a difference when the chips were down. And now I'm working here alongside you, Jodie and Sharon and many others, so we can put a plan together to help us all when a dire emergency happens again. We will be more prepared, we will know what we can manage as a community, and we know what we'll do next time as individuals and as communities. So that's why I'm here, to help as many people as I can.
Now, Jodie, it's your turn to share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. I was born in Bega and grew up there. I attended Bega West and then Bega High. I had a brief spell in Sydney in my 20s, but I was pulled back to the beautiful Bega Valley to raise my two daughters, 23 and 21. Now, when I returned to the Bega Valley, I returned to my job as a videologist at Top Video in Bega, indulging my love of film. Video shops, there's a thing. Now, I worked there for 7 years, loved it, but at the age of 33, I got a little bit of itchy feet. I enrolled in a Bachelor of Arts at the University of Wollongong at their Bega campus. Now, I stayed there for 12 years. I studied for 12 years, which is an awfully long time to be studying. But I just love critical inquiry. I love research. I love problem solving. So I stayed there for 12 years. I completed an honours degree in history and then a PhD in history, hence why I can now use the title doctor. My PhD focused on non-Indigenous engagements with the Bundian Way project, which here in Eden we'd all be familiar with. So in my PhD I was looking at the impact of First Nations storytelling on non-Indigenous people. So really my professional life has kind of kept drawing me back to Eden. It has this kind of magnetic pull for me. So in my PhD I was a journo with the Eden Magnet for a little while. And then through I had a role with the local jobs program where I supported the Eden Community Access Centre to develop their hospitality training hub. So Eden has this kind of special magnetic pull for me, and also my family history is also here. My dad grew up in Lochiel. He attended Eden High, and he ran a fruit and veg shop here in town with his family. I think his name's up on a plaque there somewhere up in the main street. Look, I'm a real people person. and I really like talking with people. As a historian, I'm deeply interested in people, but I'm also very, very interested in their stories. So history at its core is really about people and their stories and how those stories shape us and connect us and inform our daily lives. I've always worked with and for communities. Like yourself, Sharon and Deb, I find it really, really rewarding, and it's a passion that drives me. I'm currently really interested, and I guess I have been for quite some time, in a community of care approach or a communities of care model of community work. Now, that's really simply, it's what it says on the tin. It's about communities who care for one another. So it's where communities work together to support one another, where they're invested in each other's lives, and they're invested in each other's well-being. So it's caring for and about each other. So my sort of core belief system is that we should be taking an ethics of care approach to all of our decision making. Caring about each other should really guide that decision making. Oh, and I also really love cats. Love cats. I'm in love with my little Poppy girl. She's a little 4-year-old domestic short hair. Cats are also my passion project. So at the moment I'm working on a research project which I'm hoping will eventuate in a cultural history of cat ownership in Australia. I just love it so much. Now, interestingly, cats happen to be everywhere and nowhere in history. So, for example, cats are part of a really, really big and significant photographic archive. So if you go into Trove or the Australian War Memorial, you'll see there's lots of pictures of cats and people with cats, but they're nowhere in the history books. So I'm hoping to right that fundamental wrong and resurrect the story of cat ownership in Australia and the impact they've had on our lives, because my little Poppy girl's had such a fantastic impact on my life. Okay, so enough about cats. I could go on talking about cats for a very, very, very long time. But we're here to talk about disaster preparedness. But first, to get us in the right space, I think we might need a song. So we're going to hear from the Doobie Brothers. Listen to the music. Hello, welcome back. We were just listening to the Doobie Brothers. Listen to the music. If you've just joined us, I'm Jodie Stewart. I'm the Disaster Preparedness Coordinator for the Eden Community Access Centre, and you are listening to our very first episode of Prepared for Disaster, which is a program about disasters and the important role that communities do and can play in disaster. Now, previously, I was talking to my fabulous project colleagues, Sharon Wellard and Deb Austin, who were regaling us with their personal and professional backstory. Both of them have had very rich and diverse life histories. Now, Sharon, I want to circle back to something you were saying about the richness of Eden, because I think the three of us share, I was talking about this magnetic pull that Eden has for me. Although I grew up in Bega and was schooled in Bega, something keeps pulling me back to Eden. It has this richness and diversity. So if you could talk to us a little bit about what you were talking about that richness of Eden and surrounds. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think the thing about Eden is, and what I've noticed since coming back is, and working in the Eden community, is the strong community spirit. And it really stands out here. And there's a real willingness for so many people to give their time freely to advance the community. So where there's a need, what I'm seeing is there's always individuals and community groups stepping up to fix problems and get involved and help others. And when you look at all the diverse groups and clubs that exist here to support others, there's the sporting groups, there's the Eden Killer Whale Museum Committee, there's volunteers everywhere on that committee and in that museum. There's ESCI, the Eden Services and Social Club, and I just love that name, ESCI. The View Club, the Access Centre, where we're all working, Twofold Ladies, Imagine Eden, all the volunteers down at the Visitor Information Centre and helping out when cruise ships come in. The Eden Chamber of Commerce is quite incredible. There's lots more that I haven't even touched on. So that's an incredibly long list of groups in a very small town, and it says a lot about the culture here, that people strongly believe in contributing to community. And these groups are full of people with amazing skills that they dedicate to the community and ask for nothing in return. So in recent times, a couple of new groups have emerged as a result of seeing need in the community, and have come together to encourage one another and lead changes designed to improve the lives of people throughout the community. So I thought I might just touch on those briefly. And I've been involved with both in one way or another. And one of those is the Trailblazers, and I'm sure lots of listeners have heard about what Cherie Mercado and Megan Poor have been doing down at the Fitness Hub in Corkle Street. Not only did this team, supported by others in the community, come up with the idea for a fitness trail for Eden, and that's all about improving the health and well-being of people in Eden. They championed it with the council, with the Access Centre's help, and they sought funding from the government and the community, and they helped project manage the construction. They were involved at every step, and now they're the custodians of the equipment in Corkle Street and along Aslings Beach Road. Cherie and Megan knew they couldn't just stop at making sure the equipment was built, because build it and they will come is a bit of a theory. It always helps to provide guidance and support, and that's what they do every Thursday. Their commitment is to conduct classes on Thursday mornings at the Fitness Hub, and I've been to a few of their classes, and it's such a wonderful community of women and men who enjoy getting fitter and enjoy one another's company. And, you know, what they've created now is a real sense of community around that hub. They've been working on the garden beds immediately adjacent to the Fitness Hub, and they're creating a sense of pride in that area that's become quite important to them. So it's a really good example of community coming together to be stronger and to make a difference. And the other great example is Gary Hunter's Clean Corallo initiative. And that was all about Gary being really frustrated by the amount of rubbish that was ending up in the lake and the sediment flowing in from the catchment. So he approached the Eden Recovery and the Resilience Alliance, which is a subcommittee of the Access Centre and a collaboration with the Visitor Information Centre and the Chamber of Commerce, because he knew he needed some support, and ERA had been set up to provide just that sort of support for people who were looking to address challenges in the community and address a need. So together with the ERA, they worked on a Clean Corallo campaign with a number of parts to it. And one of those is regular rubbish pickups around the lake. And another is advocating to council for support for trash traps to be fitted on stormwater drains and for federal and state government grants to address the sedimentation flow issue. Some of those things, you know, are immediate, others are longer term. But it's about, you know, getting stuck in, getting support from other people in the community, creating a bit of a movement and some passion around something that people believe in, and continuing to hold the line and not give up, really. So by advocating to council, Gary and the team have been able to secure funding for the trash trap trial, and Gary's encouraging more people to help with his rubbish pickups, and he's in regular contact with council staff on bigger issues, so he's built those relationships with council, and he's involved in the coastal management plan, which has been delayed, but includes Lake Corallo. So it's terrific stuff that Gary's been doing, and he needs everyone's support. So whoever wants to get involved, if you've got a passion for Lake Corallo, you can find the Clean Corallo Facebook group on Facebook, and you can get in touch with Gary that way. So we've got an ageing population, and many of our volunteers are aged well into their 70s and 80s. So I guess it's about whatever we younger community members can do, and I'm nearly 60 years old, and I guess I count myself as younger. Whatever we can do to pitch in, we should.
Absolutely. And, you know, obviously by the groups that you canvassed, Sharon, volunteerism is very strong in Eden, and there are some wonderful people doing amazing things and advocating for and behalf of the community. Now, Deb, we're talking about the sense of community in Eden. It's very, very strong. So how did you find that sense of community? Because you moved from Cairn River to Eden. How did you find that sense of community?
Eden is just full of some beautiful people, and I was up the street one day at the local post office and bumped into somebody that I'd met through work and got such a warm greeting and a long chat that I walked away thinking, I've found myself a new home here. And people are just beautiful. I've attended many community gatherings from Kaya to Womba, all around, and I've met some truly lovely people at the community centre itself. So not just the people that come in, the people who need the centre. We have a great volley of ladies, amazing ladies and gents on occasion who volunteer at the centre, mostly retired ladies who give their years of experience in the hope to help others. They're a true inspiration to me anyway. I find people who work or volunteer in helping their community are a bunch of people, and I'd like to think I've made some good friends here in Eden and surrounds. Work has enabled me to participate in things like African drumming sessions, organising pop-up choirs, and they've encouraged me to, as in work has encouraged me to branch out with painting sessions, which we've had a blast, and I've met some great ladies and had some good laughs. Much needed after what we've all been through the last couple of years. So it's really a great community. I've loved it.
Yeah, and these are the ways to connect that you talk about, Deb, and they're so very important. So feeling connected to your community is really vital to well-being, and lots of research suggests that as well. So having that really strong sense of belonging and being connected to others is how we thrive as human beings, because we are social creatures after all. And the research tells us that well-connected communities, communities like Eden, is also what makes a well-prepared community. So, and this has become our project tagline. So a well-connected community is a well-prepared community. Now, if communities are well-connected and if they have those really strong social networks, they're usually better placed to work together to respond to disaster events, but to also mitigate risk and prepare for future events. So connectedness and social cohesion are really important. They're really important, and they're a real essential ingredient to communities recovering from disaster. So well-connected communities also provide support, and in terms of that community of care model that I was talking about earlier, well-connected communities also provide support for those most vulnerable people, which are often that cohort that are the most affected by disaster. Now, I want to have a little chat with you, Sharon and Deb, about the fun stuff that we've been doing in the project, because I spoke a little bit about how I really love talking to people. So this became my perfect job, because a big part of the disaster preparedness project was our community engagement, which was going out into community, having conversations with people, tapping into their insights around disaster preparedness. So I want to talk a little bit about our community table talks and the workshops that we've been hosting here in Eden, because this has become the real central pillar of the work that we've been doing. And as I said, it's also been really, really great fun. We've had fantastic chats, we've had wonderful food. So Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about this fun stuff that we've been doing?
Yeah, I certainly can, and it has definitely been fun. I've met a lot of wonderful people. We've had a lot of laughs, a lot of great, meaningful conversations. It's been a really wonderful way to bring community members together to have conversations about things that matter. In this case, it's about disaster preparedness and recovery and resilience. And perhaps, these table talks and the format that we use, which was, about small group conversations held over about 2 hours in small intimate groups, could be a tool for the future for the whole community to use to work through any important issues over time. I'd like to think that's the case. So community engagement for the Disaster Preparedness Project has been really key to making sure that the plan we end up with is one that genuinely focuses on the community's priorities. I mean, sure, we could come up with our best guess at a plan that we think would suit the community, but I'm not really sure how successful that would be without having included and worked with the community to do that. So we knew really early in this project that we had to find a way to include as many voices as possible in the groundwork for this plan. And we heard about the work being done by a movement called Art of Hosting, which is really just a number of practices created and used by people all around the world to lead meaningful conversations with their communities. And that led us to designing our community table talks format, which we rolled out in Eden and in surrounding villages last year, and we reached around 150 people who were invited to get together in small groups and to respond to 3 powerful questions. And those questions were, 1, what has helped you manage through a disaster? 2, what would make you better prepared for future disasters? And then what could we do together as a community to be better prepared for future disasters? So the question started off quite personal, and then a reflection piece around what people believe they could do better, they could have done better last time, or how they could have been better prepared, and then coming together as a community, how we could all work together to be better prepared. So out of those table talks came 3 really consistent themes. We were quite surprised that time and time again, by the time we came to the end of those 2-hour sessions, participants had pretty much come up with similar things, themes that would guide our project. And the community told us that these are the things that we need to do to become stronger and better prepared. So there's 3 things. 1, better disaster education, information and training. 2, improved disaster communication. And 3, enhanced community connectedness. And we talked about that a bit earlier. So very quickly after we began our series of table talks, and we went out to outlying areas, for example, Wyndham and Toowoomba to conduct some of these, very quickly some of the communities got motivated, and including Wyndham and Eden Cove, to take hold of those themes. And they identified a tool created by the Red Cross, which is known as a Community-Led Resilience Team, or CRT model. And they saw this as a way of meeting the needs, those 3 things that I've just run through, for their communities. So they held CRT information sessions, and they're making real progress in forming their own CRTs. So to bring those themes to life for more of the Eden community, and Eden's a much bigger community obviously than Wyndham, and Eden Cove is just a subset of the broader Eden community, and to begin getting practical about the things it can do to address these priorities, we decided to hold 2 Resilient Eden community workshops in Eden last November. And the workshops brought people together to understand more about the Disaster Preparedness Project and where it's at, and to respond to another powerful question. And that was, what is possible when we work together and share the load to be prepared and resilient to future disasters? So it was an opportunity to get more community people involved in contributing to the priorities for a disaster preparedness, recovery and resilience plan for Eden, and to begin focusing on the things that are in the community's power to influence. In the afternoon, we held a session that had people coming forward with topics that they wanted to explore further and begin thinking about with others as potential projects. And the question they responded to in the afternoon was, what are the initiatives, projects, ideas and opportunities we can start working on now to build our preparedness and resilience to future disasters? And so there were a number of ideas that came out of that. Once again, community-led resilience teams for Eden, a vulnerable peoples project, how we can best support vulnerable people through a disaster, The concept of the need to boost volunteerism in Eden, how we can work together as a community to increase volunteer numbers and increase the volunteer culture, and whole of community engagement and communication. So that includes education, information and training about disaster and evacuation and safe places. So there were some really powerful projects that came out of those workshops, and people started to think in terms of what they can do practically to take some of these things forward.
Thanks, Sharon. Now, we're just going to pause for a minute. We're going to play a song, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to ask Deb a little bit about a table talk she hosted, just to give us an insight into our table talk. So now we're going to hear Simon and Garfunkel, I Am a Rock.
A winter's day in a deep and dark December, gazing from my window to the streets below, on a freshly fallen silent shroud of snow. I am a rock, I am an island. I built walls, a fortress deep and mighty, that none may penetrate. I have no need of friendship. Friendship causes pain. It's laughter and it's loving I disdain. I am a rock, I am an island. Don't talk of love, well, I have heard the word before. It's sleeping in my memory. I won't disturb the slumber of feelings that have died. If I never loved, I never would have cried. I am a rock, I am an my books and my poetry to protect me. I am shielded in my armor, hiding in my room, safe within my womb. I touch no one and no one touches me. I am a rock, I am an and a rock feels no pain, and an island never cries.
Hello, welcome back to Prepared for Disaster, a program about communities and disaster. Now, beforehand, Sharon was telling us a little bit about our Table Talk initiative. We hosted several table talks over 12 months, nearly 17 across Eden and surrounding areas, and we chatted to over 140 people. Now, Deb was one of our table talk hosts. Deb hosted a table talk at the Eden Discovery Park. Deb, do you want to talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, just a quick chat. I did host a table talk out at the park. It was really easy. They're a good bunch of people. Everyone's friendly. There's about 21 of us that live out there permanently. So I've got to know them over the last couple of years, and we get together for social gatherings a couple of times a year. The first table talk, we had 8 come, which was a good conversation. We talked about things that had troubled us during the the event, the border fire. And then we decided to get together again about 3 months later and do another conversation around that with management. So we had about 10 residents come that time, and we learned a lot about the emergency plan for the park itself, and we got to learn about the evacuation procedures, where the defibs were, and ask management a few questions, which was really good for all of us. So we walked away from those couple of conversations feeling more confident in ourselves, realising that we needed to sort out our own emergency plans. And one great thing to come out of it was the inclusion of the residents in the park's emergency procedures. So we get to do an evacuation drill in 2023 now that the tourists have started to leave the park. So yeah, that's where we're up to with that.
Awesome, thanks, Deb. Amazing outcome too from that table talk. And as Sharon mentioned earlier, the follow-ups from some of those table talks have been really fantastic, where people have had these really important conversations, and it's highlighted a need within that community that they've then that has then brought them together to address. So that's really fantastic. Thanks, Deb. Now, I'm a little bit excited because in our last couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about our labs. Now, we weren't going to cue a dog barking sound because our mascot for the Project Labs is a beautiful golden Labrador. But that's just a little play on words. It's actually short for laboratory, so a project laboratory. We love cute puppies, so we're just going to keep on with that, I think. But I want, this is a really important part of the disaster preparedness project. In our last 6 months, we'll be focusing on the Project Labs and hosting Project Labs here in Eden. So Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about how the Project Labs came about?
Yeah, so I mentioned the workshops we had in November, and when we've completed those workshops and we were evaluating how they went, we realised we needed a way to bring people together regularly so that they could work on projects that were important to them. So that's how we came up with the idea for the Project Lab, and that's going to be held every fortnight in the Eden Library event space. And the project ideas from the workshops and other project ideas the community has will find a home there with support from our team. So we're not necessarily talking about big projects, but of course they will find support, but it can be little things that people can see are needed and will make a difference to how we can be better prepared for the future.
Awesome, yes. And everyone needs to get along to our very first Project Lab session, which will be Thursday, February 2nd, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Eden Library space. We're providing a beautiful curry meal. So, if you don't have any project ideas, that's fine. If you just want to come along, hear what we're all about, meet new people, have something lovely to eat, it's also a great opportunity to connect. And we're all about community connectedness as well. So as I mentioned before, the Project Lab is really important. It's the central pillar of our disaster preparedness project, because it's really going to provide that important space for community to come together and to work on projects that are really important to them. So these are the projects that you identify out there at the community, so you get to follow your passion. That's what's really exciting about the Project Lab. So the Project Lab, it's a space where the seeds of community-led disaster preparedness can really be sown, and they can be nurtured, and they can get ready to bloom. I know that's a mixed metaphor since we've already had dogs in there. But look, we're really, really proud of the lab, and we're excited to see what projects are going to take shape. So come along to the Eden Library event space Thursday, February 2nd at 5:30. We'll feed you, we'll provide you with support and encouragement. I promise you'll have wonderful, invigorating conversations. But as I said before, even if you don't have a project idea, that's fine. We'd still love to see you there. Come along and hear what we're all about. The lab is also a place to connect. If you just want to come along and have a chat, that's okay too. I love to have a chat. Now, in the last couple of minutes, I just also want to bring Deb and Sharon back into the conversation, because I want to talk about what are the next steps for the Disaster Preparedness Project. So it was a 2-year funded project. We're in our last 6 months. This is where the rubber hits the road. I really want to talk about all the exciting things that are coming up. So, what to from here, Sharon?
Well, we've got another 6 months left of the project. We're probably only 5 months now.
Yes.
So we're going to bring together all that we've learned in the last 18 months, the things that are coming out of the project lab, and we're going to work together to create a strategy and a plan as part of that strategy that will take the Eden and surrounds communities forward when it comes to disaster preparedness, recovery and resilience. We've had all those conversations. We know what the focuses are on the priorities. Now we need to bring all of that together. And the projects will be a very big part of that. I mean, this is going to be a project-based plan, and the plan will live on and evolve. And we understand that disaster preparedness takes time. It's certainly longer than the 2 years of this project. The strategy and the plan won't answer all of our concerns or all questions, and they're not a quick fix. But what we're aiming to do is to create a roadmap for communities to self-organise and lead its own recovery and preparedness. The lab's a mechanism for action and to support communities to self-organise. There's no doubt that it will evolve over time to incorporate new tools and information, and that will feed into a living plan, basically. It's not going to be a set and forget initiative. And it'll give the community a way of coming together and having important conversations for the longer term. That will lead to a rolling series of initiatives over many years to make the community stronger and better prepared.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you, Deb. Thank you, Deb and Sharon, for joining me in the hot seat today for our very first episode of Prepared for Disaster. I hope you will join us in a fortnight's time. We will be talking with Karina Severs, the manager of the Eden Community Access Centre, and Peter Skelton, the coordinator of the Eden Community Pantry, and we'll be talking about the role of community organisations, what role they play in disaster, and what they see, what Karina and Peter see as the role of community organisations into the future. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget about our first Project Lab. We'd love to see you there, February 2nd, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Eden event space. I'm going to play us out with a song that I think encapsulates this wonderful community of Eden. It's Something So Strong by Crowded House.